Good morning. I'm Angelo Castro III.
I'm Angela, and we're the Castros.
We bring you the news.
And the views that make you think.
Sometimes we agree.
Sometimes we don't.
This is News and Views.
And here are today's headlines.
The third bicameral conference committee hearing on the 2026 national budget finally pushed through after hours of delay on Tuesday.
House leaders are pushing to fast-track the 2026 national budget to avoid a reenacted budget. The Department of National Defense condemns China over a new harassment incident against Filipino fishermen at Escota Shoal. Filipino athletes keep the medals coming at the 33rd Southeast Asian Games with only 3 days left in competition. First in the news, the third hearing of the Bicameral Conference Committee on the 2026 national budget pushed through after hours-long delays due to disagreements over the DPWH budget. Lawmakers initially waited for updated data from the Department of Public Works and Highways, as costs are still being recomputed and verified, but they ultimately decided to proceed with other agencies. The budgets for the Departments of Agrarian Reform and Interior and Local Government were approved, while discussions on the National Irrigation Administration were deferred. The Department of National Defense received an additional 7.54 billion pesos, including increases to military subsistence allowances. Meantime, Senate President Tito Soto confirmed that many in the majority are considering a possible reenacted budget using last year's spending plan due to ongoing contentious issues.
It's acceptable, sir, that a corruption-conducive, gap-ridden budget.
Inumpisa na ng executive, sinabi nila ayaw na nila ng corruption. Tatapusin ng Senado ito. Even if it means we'll delay the budget, so be it.
House Appropriations Chair Micaela Suansing emphasized that the lower chamber is determined to avoid a reenacted national budget. Here's the report.
Parañaque City Representative Brian Yamsuan denied allegations of threats against the leadership of House Speaker Boji D and Majority Leader Sandro Marcos amid budget deliberations. Yamsuan said Speaker D has directed House members to complete the budget as soon as possible.
The House leaders, we just met, committed kami sa leadership ni Speaker Boji D, and we will be as one in our chamber to ensure that talagang itong maayos natin itong national budget. Nangyayari lang naman tumahintigan to because of the nangyayari sa budget. Pero at the end of the day, we are committed to the leadership of Speaker Boji D.
The denial comes after Senate President Pro Tempore Ping Lacson claimed that some lawmakers had allegedly threatened the House leadership if certain budget priorities were not approved. Meanwhile, House Committee on Appropriations Chairperson Mika Suansing stressed that the lower chamber wants to avoid a reenacted budget. She noted that both chambers are working to resolve differences over the proposed 2026 budget of the DPWH.
Ang maganda po, ako, whenever the communication lines are kept open, that to me is progress. The worst that can happen in a situation like this is that both parties would refuse to engage with each other. So, produktibo naman po kasi nakapag-brainstorm po kami kung ano po yung mga pwedeng posible na solusyon o mga hakbang para po maipagpatuloy po natin yung BICAM. At matasolbahan po kung ano man po yung contentious na mga issue.
The Senate and the House are targeting the ratification of the 2026 General Appropriations Bill by December 22, after which it will be forwarded to President Bongbong Marcos for signing. For News 5, I'm Marian Enriquez. We are One News.
Now joining us to provide insights on these recent developments is geopolitical analyst Richard Heydarian. Richard, good morning.
Good morning. Baka naman pwede sabihin yung vlogger or political analyst para or heckler, parang katulad ni Sir Ronald.
Heckler ka ba, Richard?
Baguhin natin yung title niya.
Papunta na dyan. Oh, Richard, I know, knowing you, no, that you've been looking at yung deliberations ng budget and observing. No? So, ano yung takeaway mo so far? Parang a lot of, well, not a lot, some people are saying parang iba ang movement or yung mga nangyayari na ngayon na may camera on the lawmakers.
Right. Well, unang-una, hinahanap ko kung nandyan pa rin si Senator Bato de la Rosa. Mukhang, baka magkaroon tayo ng mga cardboard senators at the ratings are going. Sinasahot pa naman mga yan. No, I think the fundamental problem here is very clear. Unang-una, this is turning into a circus dahil may mga iba't ibang grupo, including some people very close to the president or who are using these kinds of hearings to score political points. I mean, this is the same person who tried to dismiss her own brother as a drug addict and calling on him to step down. So there are many people there who do not necessarily have the best of intentions. At ang intention nila dyan is to score political points, to push for their own political agenda. Kaya may pagkazarsuela ito. And unfortunately, that is not really in the interest of the nation at hindi ito tutulong doon sa kalidad at saka direksyon at hopefully the outcome ito ng bicameral committee. Pangalawa, obviously alam ng lahat ng tao, this has been one of the most controversial elements of budget processing in the Philippines dahil alam natin maraming insertions at mga kalokohan na nangyari dito in the past. But let's not forget, a lot of yung mga kababalagan na nangyari in the past did not happen dun sa formal, actual bicameral committee. Nangyari yan sa mga side shows at saka dun sa tinatawag na green room. So even though ilalagay mo ito on the record, among other things, what really matters is, are there gonna be side deals? Meron bang mga green room discussions? Meron bang mga inner group discussions na hindi natin alam? So that's something that we have to keep in mind. At of course, pangatlo, I think one of the problems we have here is walang center of gravity. With all due respect to President BBM, I think the president is still struggling to strike a balance between creating at least an impression that lumalaban siya sa corruption, that he has heard the people. Sabi naman niya, mahiya naman kayo. So he's trying to create some changes to make sure at least atong taon na to, yung susunod na budget ay magiging more transparent, accountable among others. But at the same time, alam naman natin, medyo ilang din ang presidente natin at alanganin na. I mean, these ICI investigations, these corruption scandals have been coming very close to home. His cousin was removed as the Speaker of the House. His son had to face the ICI. And at some point, people are going to call for the head of the emperor, right? They're going to say, oh, what about the corruption in the Malacanang? Or maybe Marcos-era corruption. You get what I'm saying? So balancing that is going to be very difficult. At nasa-sense din yan ng mga politiko. I mean, these senators and congressmen, these are political animals. They can sense opportunity. They can sense a political vacuum. And clearly, they're pushing for their own agenda. And kaya nga nandito tayo sa sitwasyon na yan. Kaya mahalaga yung role ng civil society groups para bantayan yung totoong kalidad at saka yung mga mahalagang elemento para magkaroon tayo ng reassurance na walang mga allocables, insertions at ano pang mga kalokohan ng mga secret pork barrel na ipapasok dyan.
Well, having said that, what are your thoughts also doon naman sa usapin na I think this is for the first time na ang presidente ay nagsasabi na, sige, sa Congress, bigyan nyo na yung nire-request ng DPWH, no, na 45 more billion, while the Senate is pushing back, no? So parang nakikita natin na merong parang pinapanigan dito. And this is a BICAM na dapat ang presidente is parang wag kang makialam dito. What do you have to say to that?
Well, in the ideal world, yes, we have checks and balances, but we know in reality things are much more complicated. That's not an excuse, by the way. Obviously, I believe in checks and balances and rule of law, but you're asking me as a political analyst. You're not asking me as a Mickey Mouse, like director. No, but speaking about this, to be honest, actually, here my take is a bit more nuanced. Sa aking palagay, I understand yung leaky bucket metaphor, yung idea na huwag niyong bigyan ng pera yung departamento na yan kung saan na naman pupunta yung pera niyan. Basically, the more you put water in the bucket, kung may leak naman, lalabas din yan, sasayang na naman yung pera ng bayan. Para sa akin, I have some problem with that kind of metaphor because we are already seeing the economy slowing down. At isa sa malaking dahilan na nagsa-slow down yung economy, we're gonna miss our targets by far. We're gonna lose trillions of pesos in foregone economic productivity is because yung government spending ay bumaksak. Now, obviously, ayaw natin ng mga kalokohan. Obviously, gusto natin makulong yung mga kurakot. But what we also do not want to happen is magkakontract yung government spending so much, and a lot of government spending is in DPWH, is in DepEd, ito yung mga malalaking departamento with budget. So, unfortunately, what has to happen here is habang naglilik yung bucket na yan, habang tinatakpan natin, kailangan pa rin natin lagay ng tubig.
Maglagay, yeah.
Kumbaga, double time. That's why this is very difficult. Dahil hinayaan natin na maging ganyang kaliki yung bucket, ganun kadaming kalokohan na nangyari, and that is why mahalaga para sa akin yung reassurance or verifiable reassurance ni Vince Tizon, Secretary of DPWH, na tinatanggal talaga yung mga scalawags, no? To use the term that Digong used to use for abusive policemen. Let's use this term, scalawags ng mga district engineers, mga contractors at kung sino man, while also making sure na Secretary Vince Tizon is incorporating lahat ng mga proposals ng civil society groups among others para sisiguraduhin na baka hindi perfectly matakpan natin lahat ng butas doon sa bucket na yan, pero sana naman hindi ganong kalantaran katulad ng nangyari last year. The good news is, hindi naman election year next year. The good news is, medyo papunta na sa lame duck si BBM. And more importantly, we're going to be ASEAN chair next year. So the eye of the gaze of the world is going to be on us. Trump might be in town next year. Xi Jinping might come to town next year. Big investors are going to give us a second look. I'm getting invitations to do all of these major business forums in Manila next year. So baka naman, hindi lang sila mahiya, ma-pressure naman sila na while, yes, asking for more water in the bucket, ayusin nyo naman ang bucket, lalagay nyo naman mga cushion, lalagay nyo naman mga protection. Because let's not forget, macroeconomics is not like home economics. Kung hindi gumastos ang gobyerno, this is going to have ripple effect. It's going to create contraction in the economy because there's going to be fewer people with jobs dun sa infrastructure projects, fewer people with money to spend, consumer spending could go down, investor confidence could go down, our infrastructure needs, yung mga pangailangan natin sa ating infrastructure could be delayed. So yes, I am for scrutiny, I am for accountability, but I am not for yung i-shutdown. Kasi kung ayaw mo ng corruption, edi abolish na natin yung gobyerno. Edi para wala ng corruption.
Agree.
You get what I'm saying? Kung ganyan lang gusto natin,
Don't just
i-abolish
change the
na,
people, change the system, sabi nila.
Mag-cowboy Wild Wild West na lang tayo, di ba?
Pero Richard, I agree with you. No, you're saying na malaking bagay ang spending to stimulate the economy, and we're setting an example. But recently, kasi si PBBM has been trying to ease the way we do procurement, bidding, para eliminating kumbaga steps to avoid red tape. Now that he did that, lumabas ang Bulacan Boy. So what do you do? How does Secretary Vince Tizon strike a balance between tightening restrictions to avoid corruption and from it being too tight, that red tape will come back again?
Absolutely. Yun nga, yung Goldilocks ang kailangan natin dyan. No? You need hot enough para matakot itong mga walang hiya, mga kurakot na to, contractors na to. But you don't want it too cold kung saan mag-contract naman yung economy.
Yes.
Diba? Getting that golden mean is going to be very difficult. Nevertheless, I always say, the best metaphor is Rubik's Cube. Alam ba ng taon Rubik's Cube? Yung
Yes.
pag lahat ng kulay, ganun.
Yes.
Ganun po ang public policy. Ayusin mo yung procurement, pero ayusin mo din yung accountability. May dapat makulong din. Ayusin mo din yung signaling ng gobyerno dun sa bicameral. Ayusin mo din yung mga processes within the legislature. Kaya nga mahirap pong governance eh. Kaya nga hindi ako, naiinis ako when people say, political will lang yan, political will lang yan. Actually, past 3-4 months sa Oxford, I've been really looking into public policy sciences. It's very difficult. There are 7-8 different ways of doing procurement, right? And each of these procurements have their own trade-offs, right? There are many ways of passing the budget. Mahirap talaga po yung public policy. Kaya dapat pag-usapan natin ito in an evidence-based matter, not in a simplistic, moralistic way. And also at the same time, of course, wag naman tayo magpa-hostage sa gobyerno. Oy, kung di nyo kami bigyan ng pera, magko-contract yung economy. So finding that golden mean, that Goldilocks response is going to be difficult, pero wala tayong choice eh. This is the only way to save our economy and save our democracy. Kaya mahirap talagang demokrasya eh. It takes a lot of responsibility, it takes a lot of intervention. Kaya kailangan niyo yung mga analyst na katulad namin to make sense out of things.
Well, Dr. lang, Richard, speaking of the Goldilocks solution, we spoke to a very good friend of yours yesterday, si Clarita Carlos, the other day. And she suggested that why not shift to Parliament to safeguard the way the budget or the government spends money? Kasi alam naman sa Parliament, how it's limited to how the members of Parliament, they don't actually have a say in how you're supposed to put projects out. Yun ang suggestion niya.
Well, for me, kahit anong palitan mo yung, whether jeepney ito, Ferrari ito, kung same lang yung drivers, baka it might get worse.
Baka Parliament,
right?
sila rin.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I just came from UK. Grabe yung mga scandals na pinag-usapan dyan. And that's a mature parliamentary system. You can talk about yung 1MDB corruption scandal sa Malaysia, which is a parliamentary system. We can talk about corruption scandals in Iraq, which has a parliamentary system. Para sa akin, medyo simplistic yung mga ganito. But with all due respect to my former mentor, Clarita Carlos, she has a very good book on bureaucracy. Yung proseso ng bürokrasya. At I think very helpful yan. Kasi at the end of the day, kailangan mo palakasin yung mga ahensya ng gobyerno. For me, the gold standard is Singapore, to be honest. I'm not a fan of like all that Lee Kuan Yew school. But you see in Singapore, first of all, they pay very competitively. So, the temptation is not there. And more importantly, you get the best and brightest. You attract the best and brightest to the government. And then pangatlo, they make sure that meron silang training. Yung mga top policymakers sila, may training sa mga top companies. So they know how to do procurement in tandem with the companies, or alam nila paano tumatakbo yung utak ng contractor. So sometimes they even have co-development pilot projects. And most importantly, yes, zero tolerance for corruption. As you know, most recently, there was a Minister of Government in Singapore who was jailed for corruption scandals. So zero tolerance for corruption, highly competitive salaries, attract the best and brightest, and then kunin mo yung mga tao na hindi lang matatalino pero may eksperyensya pagdating sa procurement, even from the private sector side of the story.
Well,
right?
paano yan? Oo.
Meron silang in-house expertise, meron din silang private sector counterparts.
Right.
Singapore is really the golden standard here, and there's a lot we can learn from them on
Right.
issues of transparency and anti-corruption.
Well, paano yan going back dun sa pinag-uusapan natin sa BICAM, nasa impasse ngayon ng both houses at by December 31, dapat meron na mapirmahan ng Pangulo. Other than that, reenacted budget tayo. And we are seeing na some lawmakers, especially the Senate, ay parang gearing towards reenacting the budget because nga with all of the things that are happening right now, reenacting budget na 2025 ay dubbed as the most corrupt budget in our country. So ano yun? Why are they saying that?
100%. Kung re-enacted, ibig sabihin, okay na sila na i-re-enact yung budget na pinakamatamang budget. So that falls on them. Which means there's gonna be internal negotiations kasi basically ang sasabihin nila dito, lahat tayo talo dito. Pag ma-re-enact ito, yari tayo sa taong bayan, sisisihin tayo ng lahat ng taong bayan, sasabihin nila, okay pala tayo sa corruption, okay pala tayo sa kalokohan. Depende din ito sa Malacanang, what kind of negotiations they're gonna have with Malacanang to make sure na the final version is, at the very least, good enough or signals good enough reforms and changes from 2025. So sana naman, curb your greed, curb rin yung mga paepal, yung mga nagpapasikat effect dyan. At the same time, I hope the adults in the room, you have Sherwin Gatchalian, you have many people also in the Congress, I hope the adults in the room step up and do this. Sometimes kasi sa diplomacy, kailangan mo rin ng quiet diplomacy eh. Kung lahat ilalatag mo yan sa public, magiging grandstanding, exactly. So some of this, unfortunately, will have to be done in the quiet rooms. But the ultimate goal should be accountability, transparency, and all of that. As I said nga, next year, the gaze of the world is going to be on the Philippines.
Right.
We're going to meet our economic targets big time this year. Kaya kailangan natin ayusin yan because mamaya maapektuhan na rin yung investor confidence. Baka yung credit rating natin. Inflation already is bad. Foreign exchange is so bad. Napakamaling ticket namin pauwi sa Pilipinas ng Christmas. So everyone is hurting right now. Everyone is hurting, whether may Rolex ka or Gucci or not.
Bawal umubo. Pero we will continue to monitor the BICAM and we will also get in touch with you. For the meantime, maraming salamat sa iyong oras, geopolitical analyst Richard Hedarian / political heckler and all that. Maraming salamat. Now, in other news, the MMDA held a press conference with the DPWH this morning. For the details, we have mobile journalist Arles de los Santos on the ground. Arles, ano ba ang napag-usapan dyan?
Angela at Diego, matagal na na hinihintay ng publiko itong rehabilitasyon na EDSA at matagal na rin itong pinaplano ng pamahalaan. Pero kanina sa press conference, inanunsyo nga ni DPWH Secretary Vince Dizon na sisimula na ito sa December 24 na kung saan nga magiging 24/7 ang magiging reblocking dito kung saan nga December 24 alas 11 ng gabi hanggang January 4, 2026 24/7 yung kanila magiging gawain. Ito ay gagawin doon sa northbound at southbound ng EDSA at bukod pa diyan mababa daw yung mga gastos dito na pondo ng pamahalaan sa naunang plano no, na isang buong taon or 2 taon na rehabilitasyon ng EDSA at 17 billion pesos. Yung planong gastusin, bumaba na ito no, sa 8 months lamang na target at 6 billion na budget. No? So 11 billion pesos daw yung matitipid ng pamahalaan dito. Ayon sa kalihim, sisimulan ito mula Rojas Boulevard hanggang Orense, no? At magpapatuloy pa rin naman yung coding scheme na isinasagawa o pinatutupad ng MMDA at hindi na rin daw kakailanganin na dumaan o makipag-partner pa sa mga skyway o iba pang tollways para maibsan ang trapiko ng publiko dahil inaasahan nga no, na hindi na magiging mabigat ang idudulot na trapiko ng pagsaayos ng EDSA sa paparating pang mga araw.
Arles, madaming nagsasabi kaya daw ginawang December 24 tong rehab is because busy ang lahat. Sa Noche Buena at Christmas, baka makalimutan nila yung init na ulo nila. Pero Arles, linawin natin ha, beginning to 24th sa gabi ito, I suppose, no? Ano yung areas makikita mo maapektuhan? Kasi base sa binanggit mo, parang yung mga binanggit mo, mga choke point ng EDSA yan eh.
Diego, ito daw yung 2 weeks no, na plano nila na rehabilitasyon ng EDSA dahil mas madami daw yung mga nasa probinsya sa araw na ito. No? They're expecting nga na parang nasa 60% ng mga Pilipino ay either nasa kanilang mga probinsya para mag-celebrate ng holiday o hindi naman kaya nasa ibang bansa. No? So actually kanina dinaanan natin yung EDSA, yes, kahit dito sa kung nasan tayo ngayon, mas maluwag na talaga yung daloy ng trapiko. So iniisip nila kung ipapatupad nila ito sa December 24 onwards, no, bago magbalik sa normal yung mga opisina at bumuhos yung bugso no, ng mga motorista na babalik sa kanilang mga bahay, mas maiibsan daw nito no, yung inaasahan nga na mas mabigat na trapiko na inaasahan. So, pero northbound, Diego, northbound and southbound ito isasagawa, no? Ay, hindi lang natin nakuha specific kung saan nga ba, pero sisimulan daw ito sa Rojas Boulevard, no, staff area, and then magdidiretso hanggang sa Orense. But that is for the first phase nitong rehabilitation. So sa 8 buwan, Diego, na plano nila na rehabilitation, 4 months ay para doon sa phase 1, no? Mula Rojas Boulevard hanggang sa Orense, and then inaasahan natin na baka sa Mayo, no, summertime, mas mainit ang panahon na ipagpapatuloy nga yung phase 2. Pero ngayon, hindi pa rin nila kinukumpirma kung kailan ba magsisimula yung phase 2. Pwede raw itong mapaaga, pwedeng ma-delay ng kaunti, depende kung paano nga magiging progreso ng rehabilitasyong isasagwa. Kabukod pa dyan, tinitignan na rin ng MMDA na magdagdag pa no, ng ibang mga bus lane, ng mga bus carousels sa EDSA no, para daw nang sa gayon mas makasakay ng mas madaming mga pasahero at hindi maapektuhan yung kanilang mga pagpasok sa trabaho, ganyan din ang pag-uwi at syempre yung nakakatakot na haba ng pila. No? Patuloy din yung pagsiguro nila na pati yung mga MRT natin no, ay magagamit din ng publiko at sa December 25 nga raw, no, araw ng Pasko, sisimulan ng gamitin yung Dalian trains na pininiwalaan at ayon sa mga kalihim na kasama natin ngayong araw ay makakatulong talaga dito sa daloy ng trapiko na magiging mabigat kung mayroon mang mga sasakyan pang darating no at maaapektuhan ng rehabilitasyon na isasagawa at yung mga pasahero na tuloy pa din ang araw-araw na pamumuhay para sa kanilang pag-commute dito sa Maynila.
Alright, maraming salamat. That was our mobile journalist, Arles de los Santos.
Kung that's Rojas to Orense, southbound choke point doon, ang maapektuhan dito Manila sa traffic. Ngayon kung northbound sa may Orense to Rojas Boulevard, maapektuhan nito Guadalupe all the way to Cubao. Kaya ang solution daw dagdagan, talagang kahit naman hindi mag-rehab, dagdagan dapat talaga nila yung point-to-point buses. Nakikita mo ba yung picture pag yung overhead shots ng MMDA pag traffic?
Oo.
Di ba?
Tsaka nakailang postpone na rin naman itong rehab.
I'm saying, traffic na traffic sa EDSA, pero yung carousel lanes, ang luwag. So maximize it by putting more point-to-point. Kasi tignan mo yung data ng mga point-to-point buses, konti lang ang gumagamit. It's MRT, LRT pa rin. So dagdagan nila.
Plus, ano pa if ever matutuloy yung offline protest ng mga TNVS.
Hey, I remember sa 24th ata, kailan ba yun? Or 19? Kailan ba?
Actually today yun. Ang start nung yung cancellation ng surge fee ng mga TNVS. December 17 until January 4.
Tapos magkakaroon ng ganito. Well, let's see. We're going to see. But sana nga dagdagan nila ng point-to-point buses.
Now we'll be back with more stories after the break. Keep it here on One News. Good morning. You're still watching News and Views here on One News. While waiting for her arrest warrant, contractor Sara Discaya appeared for a preliminary investigation in her case in Malabon. The NBI emphasized that Diskaya is not receiving special treatment. Here's the report.
Wearing a bulletproof vest, flood control contractor Sara Diskaya quickly got into a vehicle after leaving the National Bureau of Investigation, or NBI. Diskaya had been in NBI custody for over a week after voluntarily submitting herself. According to the Bureau, Diskaya requested to attend a preliminary investigation for the case filed against her by the Malabon local government. Around 1 p.m., Diskaya arrived at the office of the city prosecutor in Malabon, accompanied by her lawyer. She stayed inside for only about 10 minutes before returning to the NBI around 2 p.m. NBI said Sara did not receive special treatment.
Technically, hindi pa talaga siya under arrest. Kung halimbawa naman pong lalabas yan o uuwi yan, technically, wala rin po magagawa ang NBI.
The NBI explained Diskaya is practically in their custody while waiting for a possible arrest warrant in a separate case over an alleged ghost flood control project in Davao Occidental. Once the warrant is issued, Diskaya will go through the regular booking process before being transferred to the NBI detention facility.
The Department of National Defense has condemned China for spreading lies following a new incident of harassment against Filipino fishermen at Escoda Shoal last Saturday. Defense Secretary Gibo Chodoro said claims by the Chinese Ministry of Foreign Affairs that the fishermen were armed with knives are false and unsupported by evidence. He also denied reports that the Filipino fishermen threatened members of the Chinese Coast Guard. The incident left 3 Filipino fishermen injured, prompting the DFA to file a diplomatic protest against China.
Ang direktiba ng Pangulo ay unahin ang kaligtasan ng ating mga kababayan, ang mga mangingisda na minsan ay nanganganib ang kanilang buhay. At ito po ang panahon upang ang bawat Pilipino ay magkaisa, iangat ang interes ng bansa natin, iangat ang interes ng kapwa Pilipino natin.
And to talk more about China's recent water cannon incident in near Escoda Shoal in the West Philippine Sea, we have Matthew Silverio, Secretary General of the Student Council Alliance of the Philippines. Magandang umaga sa iyo. Thanks for joining us.
Magandang umaga po sa atin lahat.
Well, of course, we would like to get your reaction, no, yung inyong grupo tungkol dito sa recent water cannon attack sa ating mga mangingisda, no, doon sa West Philippine Sea. And I think this is the first time it happened to them. Well, usually, mga mga Coast Guard yung nahaharas but this time around, it's the fishermen. Yes, sir.
Yes, these aggressive maneuvers, again, left 3 Filipino fisher folks injured. And again, in the atin ito coalition that the Student Council Alliance of the Philippines is part of, we are declaring that this is a Christmas attack, an assault on civilians at a time meant for no one.
All right. We'll try to get him back on the line. Medyo nawala siya. Kasi we would like to know their reaction. And if there are other plans, especially kasi under sila ng atin ito coalition, we all know naman at atin ito coalition, may mga ginagawa silang program. They set sail dyan, diba? Para to
last year,
yung message
concert,
natin,
diba?
para mapakita sa buong mundo na, diba, we are asserting our right there in a peaceful manner. And we would like to know if there are other activities that are planned, no, for next year mula sa kanilang hanay. And as I've said earlier, this is the first time na nangyari ito sa mga Filipino fishermen.
It's concerning
na water
kasi
cannon.
it's concerning, it's because maintindihan mo yung masama na nga yung Coast Guard ang wina-water cannon at saka mga BFAR nila vessels. But if they're going down to the level of civilians, it gets concerning because how then can we protect the civilians if yung mga Coast Guard din ang hihirapan dealing with this Chinese vessels. So magiging issue ito.
And yung point pa parang they cut the line of the anchor nung mga boat nitong mga fishermen, leaving them injured. So that's why yung PCG natin went ahead naman to rescue them.
Yes, oo.
A lot of our allies, of course, yung US, Japan, Australia, Canada, have sent their, of course, their statement regarding this and saying na, of course, hindi nila tinotolerate itong ginagawa ng China sa Philippines.
All right,
So,
we have
get back.
Matthew Silverio, Secretary General of the Student Council Alliance of the Philippines, back via a phone patch. Matthew, thank you. Go ahead.
You were saying?
All right. Yeah. Our reaction to this, again, the Ateneo Coalition, together, of course, as one of the co-conveners of the Student Council Alliance of the Philippines, declares this attack a Christmas attack by China itself. It's at a time where peace and humanity is supposed to be the center of it all. China chose otherwise, targeting Filipino fishers. Peace is not law enforcement. It is not. It is cruelty. It is plain and simple. It violates the rights of our Filipino people and our sovereignty in the West Philippines.
Pero Matthew, parang how concerned are you na civilians ngayon ang pinag-uusapan dito? Coast Guard and BFAR nahihirapan na nga fending off yung mga attacks, pero now they're at the level of civilians.
Yes, definitely po. Very important ito sa atin. And sa atin ito coalition bilang isang civilian-led coalition asserting the rights of our Filipino fisher folk, frontliners, rights in the West Philippine Sea. We are very concerned at condemning Christmas attack. And again, the government is struggling in this, and we really need more. Civilian-led initiatives at ma-pressure lalo on China.
I'm sorry, you said we really need more. Sorry, we lost you there.
We really need more civilian-led initiatives para matulak po natin na pressure on China sa ginagawa nilang ganitong mga attacks sa ating mga mangyayari.
So what initiatives are we looking at right now? But currently, kasi every time that we encounter these kinds of attacks, ang ating DFA would file diplomatic protest when in fact, sabi nga natin, importante din naman yun, no? Para nalalagay sa paper na may nangyaring ganitong insidente, etc. But other than that, what are you looking at? What are you looking for another initiatives?
Yes, the Ateneo Coalition vows that we will seek justice by strengthening, again, civilian presence in the West Philippines. 3 beses na po tayong pumunta sa West Philippine Sea at nag-civilian-led supply mission. Noong 2023, noong September, May 2024, and May 2025 this year. And in 2026 po, we will mount more civilian missions to further civilianize these waters. The answer to this harassment, again, is not further violence. It's not violence against violence. It's not fighting fire against fire. It's solidarity and active citizenship. Yung West Philippines po ay kailangan ma-civilianize, not militarize. It is not a battle because it is ours. It's our home.
So you're, Matthew, so you're prepared to, well, alam naman natin, civilians na ang inaatake ng China, and if you're going to continue with civilian missions, are you prepared for this? May coordination na ba kayo with the Coast Guard?
Again, as atin ito po ay isang civilian-led coalition, so we're preparing ourselves, yung coalition po namin, at iba't ibang mga organizations na kasama dito. Of course, kasama Akbayan Party, Akbayan Youth, Student Council Alliance of the Philippines, at iba pang mga conveners. So, nagpe-prepare po kami on our side, and we will, again, send more, we'll announce more details along the way po regarding the 2026 civilian.
But are we looking at specific dates for your civilian mission sa West Philippine Sea?
We're not going to say po kung ano yung mismong further date. Again, along the way po, we'll announce this 2026 mission this coming months and days and weeks ahead.
Alright, so during itong mga nangyaring civilian missions ninyo last year and earlier this year, ano yung pwedeng ma-share nyo sa amin, especially when you were with the Filipino fishermen doon sa West Philippine Sea?
Yes, yung last na civilian-led fly missions, pinaka-favorite ko, quote-unquote, ay the second mission. Though the first mission is really historical, yung second mission ay with the payaws, yung mga fishing boat. So doon talaga nakita namin kung ano yung pinaka-experience doon ng mga mangingisda natin when it comes to when Chinese militia and Chinese Coast Guard vessels are encircling them. And again, ako po ay isa sa mga nasa bangka noon. Kitang-kita naman natin on how they are trying to pressure and harass itong mga fisher folk boats natin, itong mga mangingisda natin. And we experienced the same thing natin. Hindi kami winotter cannon, pero we were na huga yung bangka namin nung pinagitan kami ng dalawang malaking barko. So at that time, kita naman natin that this is the daily experience of fisher folk. And the recent attack, this Christmas attack, is a manifestation of yung mga bagay na patuloy na gagawin ng China kung hindi natin paiigtingin yung pagkilos po natin.
But how significant are these civilian missions na ginagawa po ninyo in the West Philippine Sea, knowing that China is not actually recognizing the 2016 arbitral ruling?
Sorry, yung question to, medyo nawala siya.
Yeah. So, how significant are these civilian missions na ginagawa ng grupo ninyo along with the atin ito coalition, knowing that sa West Philippine Sea, knowing that China is not really recognizing itong 2016 arbitral ruling?
Yes. Okay po. So number one, this directly places attention on the safety and welfare of Filipino fisher folk, who are often, again, the first and foremost vulnerable targets of the harassment of Chinese vessels. And by maintaining this civilian presence and civilian-led missions, the missions deter abuses and help document violations when they occur. And then, of course, this mission shows that the West Philippine Sea is not just a military and diplomatic issue. It is a lived space for us Filipino civilians, that we can do something for our own country, for our own West Philippine Sea. Civilian missions are reinforce the reality that these waters are within our Philippine exclusive economic zone and are being used lawfully by Filipinos. And again, hindi nila nire-recognize ang arbitral ruling, but this also upholds international law by operating peace and transparency. The missions highlight who is following international maritime law and who is violating it. Kitang-kita naman po sa missions that China the one that violates the international law. And it also builds public and international trust, which mission generates documentation, media attention, and solidarity from civil society, locally and abroad. Lalo na po yung third mission, kitang-kita naman natin that international artists from other ASEAN countries and other countries as well are supporting this. And of course, international media is covering it. This puts pressure crucial in holding our aggressors, China, accountable and pushing more governments and institutions to act against it.
Pero it seems that, of course, sa side sa panig ng China, parang they don't really care, di ba? Kahit na magkaroon ng mga joint statements ang mga iba't ibang bansa, katulad ng US, ang Canada, Australia, Japan, and they still remain steadfast sa kanilang goal na kanila ang West Philippine Sea and they don't recognize 2016 ruling. But our government has always advocated diplomatic approach, time and again. So sa inyong grupo ba, do you think this government is going the right path in dealing this problem?
Are you satisfied, Matthew?
Satisfied?
If satisfaction rate, this is better than the last administration, but it needs more. We need more from the president, from the administration. Dati nito coalition shows that civilians are putting pressure not just internationally but on our government to do better on these missions. And again, we really need a whole nation approach, and at the same time, international solidarity for this. So yeah, if satisfaction lang po ang tatanong, we're not really satisfied with the administration efforts on the West Philippines.
Okay, so doon nga sa inyong i-organize na civilian mission next year, are we also looking at involving other groups?
Definitely, yes. We're the coalition is ever expanding, and we're partnering with different civil society groups So sana po mas marami tayong makasama this coming 2026 mission.
Okay, and of course, siguro mensahe no sa ating pamahalaan, as you said earlier that you think the President needs more parang teeth, di ba? Doon sa pag-deal dito sa ating problema sa West Philippine Sea.
Again, to our Filipino government, do not let this attack pass as just another incident. We really call on the Philippine government and in the international community to hold our aggressors, China, accountable and ensure the protection of Filipino fishers and the full freedom of navigation in international maritime law. We stand firmly with our fishers. We need to exhaust every diplomatic, legal, and multilateral mechanisms available. And we need to invest in their safety, assert our sovereign rights, and make it clear that harassment and violence against Filipino civilians will never be and should never be normalized. The West Philippines is not just a geopolitical issue. It is a home to our people. Protect them, defend our rights, and prove that the Filipino state will never abandon its own because the West Philippine Sea is ours. Atin ang West Philippine Sea.
All right, thank you for that and your time, Matthew Silverio, Secretary General of the Student Council Alliance of the Philippines.
All right, the Philippine government has evacuated 126 Filipinos amid renewed clashes between Thai and Cambodian troops, according to Manila's ambassador to Thailand, Millicent Cruz Paredes. The evacuees were relocated early and were not directly affected by the fighting. The latest flare-up, which began in December, stems from a decades-old territorial dispute and has disrupted a recent peace agreement between the two countries. Authorities said there are no plans for a large-scale evacuation since the conflict remains limited to the border.
The Philippines is coordinating with Australia in the investigation of the mass shooting at Bondi Beach in Sydney. This comes after confirmation that father and son gunmen spent almost a month in the Philippines before the attack. Here's the report.
New video shows two gunmen opening fire multiple times at Bondi Beach during Hanukkah celebrations on December 14. Minutes later, one of the gunmen was shot by police and could no longer stand. He was approached by his accompanying gunman, who later surrendered when cornered by police. The Bureau of Immigration confirmed that the gunmen, a father and son, entered the Philippines on November 1 prior to the attack. They reported Davao as their final destination, leaving the country on November 28 via a connecting flight from Davao to Manila heading back to Sydney. The Armed Forces of the Philippines said there is no validated information linking the duo to terrorist groups. The palace also said there is no need to worry yet about their visit to the country.
At this time, there is no confirmed information indicating that their visit poses a security threat, and this is not considered a serious or immediate concern.
The NBI is also backtracking the duo's activities during their month-long stay in the Philippines. For her part, Foreign Affairs Secretary Teresa Lazaro said she spoke with Australian Foreign Minister Penny Wong to express condolences and reaffirmed strong Philippine-Australia cooperation in security and law enforcement. 16 people were killed in the shooting, including the older gunman.
Don't go away because we're not done yet. Please stay with us. Welcome back. You're still watching News and Views here on One News.
Filipino athletes continue to rack up medals at the 33rd Southeast Asian Games. Team Philippines currently sits in 6th place with 168 medals, including 29 gold, 45 silver, and 94 bronze. Host country Thailand remains at the top with 326 medals, followed by Indonesia with 206 and Vietnam with 182. Singapore holds 4th place with 120 medals, while Malaysia is 5th with 151.
Meralco's Community Electrification Program has given 168 low-income households in Pasig City their own electric connections, ending decades of high sub-meter bills. Para bigyan ng mukha ang Balita, mobile journalist Arles de los Santos.
For 20 years, Citadel's family electricity has depended on the sub-meter. an electricity distribution setup that supplies from a main private meter to its neighboring houses. More often than not, customers like her are charged higher than the supposed electricity bill. They only use a desk fan, a small television, and a light bulb, yet they get charged around 1,500 pesos per month, too much for a 5,000 pesos mid-month salary of her husband. But her decades-long dilemma has finally ended as One Meralco Foundation have brought hope to 168 low-income households in Barangay Rosario, Pasig City, including hers, by providing their own legal electric service connections and meters. This was made possible by Meralco's community electrification program that provides safe and reliable electricity to poverty-stricken families in Metro Manila and to the last-mile schools in the most remote parts of the country.
3, 2, 1!
Through this project, Meralco utilized localized approaches to electrification through government partnerships so more Filipinos can gain access to legal and equitable electricity. Present in this monumental milestone are Pasig City local officials including Mayor Vico Soto as well as Meralco and OMF executives who express full commitment in empowering Filipinos.
Kung titignan nyo, talagang nakafocus ang One Meralco Foundation kung saan talaga alam namin na pinakamakakatulong kami at yan ay sa electrification. Kasi mas masusustain natin, maibibigay natin yung fundamental needs ng ating mga kababayan para ma-improve ang kanilang productivity, whether this is at home, at school, or kanilang mga livelihood.
As one of the beneficiaries, Citadel cannot contain her happiness, feeling as if weight was lifted off her shoulders. A perfect Christmas gift for her family, she said.
Ngayon December, isang malaking tulong talaga, saka malaking Pasko po talaga sa amin. Saya-saya namin kasi may kanya-kanya na kami Meralco, tapos matatawag na sa amin na po, tsaka legal po talaga siya. Masaya po, kaya salamat po sa One Meralco.
Since 2017, this Meralco Social Development Initiative has illuminated 76,190 households and 620 remote public schools in 39 provinces, ensuring no corners of the country are left in the dark. Aside from acquiring own legal electric meters, beneficiaries also won surprise prizes, taking home gifts and giveaways from the program. Kapatid Arles de los Santos, we are One News.
Students in Romblon are spreading holiday cheer with paroles crafted from recycled and native materials. Mobile journalist Ray Vicente reports.
Eco-friendly parole? Senior high school students from Romblon created paroles from native materials. The paroles are made of egg trays, coconut husk, and ipil-ipil leaves.
It's all about indigenous po kasi yan. Ang basihan po kasi namin is hindi po kami gagastos ng malaki at all about recycle po ang aming gagawing parol.
For this year's school parole entry, students from the Technical Vocational Livelihood Strand decided to use materials that are sustainable. Recycling Christmas room decorations was also due to the recent calamities that hit their province.
Maraming dumaan ng mga kalamidad sa aming bayan, sa Romblon. So ayaw kong yung mga estudyante ko ay unang-una gumastos ng malaking halaga. Bukod sa budget friendly, gusto ko makita yung creativity nila na hindi sila kailangan gumastos ng malaking amount. Kumbaga ma-reuse, no? Hindi masayang yung mga bagay.
Super panic po siya kasi po ay parang unique po siya kasi yung mga ginamit na materials is sa natural resources lang po.
The materials used are also from their houses and nearby field. And through their handmade paroles, they hope to bring the spirit of Christmas even in the four corners of the room.
Ma-feel nila yung spirit of Christmas despite of yung mga nangyari, mga calamities, yung mga problem na encounter. Maaari nating ma-celebrate ang Pasko or Kapaskuhan ng kahit sa simpleng paraan lamang.
Kapatid Ray Vicente, we are One News.
Marami tayong abangan today. Of course, most especially itong BICAM, nakatutok tayong lahat dito because ang Senado ay nasa impasse ngayon, no? Senado and mga Congress doon sa usapin ng budget ng DPWH. No? At they decided na mag-move forward muna sila sa ibang ahensya. Diba? And then we'll see kung kailangan nilang balikan kasi itong sa DPWH.
Correct.
No? And of course, hindi pa nila napag-uusapan dyan yung unprogrammed funds because in the House, merong unprogrammed funds doon at sa Senate, wala. Diba? Yun ang gusto nila. And of course, we want to know also kung tama ba itong nakita natin na doon sa budget daw ay binawasan no, ng 17.9 billion yung benefits ng rank and file government employees at dinala daw ito doon sa discretionary pork barrel funds ng for local government use.
Well,
so, isa pa yan sa mga dapat tutukan natin.
Tulad sinabi ni Richard Haydarian, yung tactic ng threat of reenacted budget, parang it's a tactic lang for them to force the other members of Congress and the Senate, of course, na to let go of their tinatawag nilang pet peeves sa budget para at least to give way and say, teka lang, kahit ayaw ko tong provision na to, ayaw ko rin ng reenacted budget kasi magagalit ng tao. So, move on to kasi we have until Christmas Eve.
Yes. Ang nangyayari kasi, nakafocus tayo ngayon dun sa DPWH saka mga infrastructure projects. Ang nangyayari, nakikita natin ngayon, mas dumadami yung pondo doon sa discretionary funds. Yung mga pwedeng pork, di ba, yung sa maifip, yung mga sa ayuda, etc. So yan, dapat tutukan din natin yan. And ang presidente, merong dapat, December 31, nasa kanya na yung budget, pinipirmahan na niya kung magkakaroon ng budget for 2026.
Ayun, but sa mga nasa-stress sa politics at nauumay sa mga issues, huwag kayong ma-stress at maumay mamaya sa Cubao area.
For sure, stressful yan.
No, Cubao area, because may maglalaban po, UAAP Game 3.
Yes.
Ngayon, the question is, will the trophy remain in Diliman or will it move back to Taft?
After 2 years, no? Di ba 2 years ago
kasi
na
last year,
Lasal.
UP won the championship over Lasal. Now this year, medyo emotional din. Kasi last year, emotional for Kiambao. This is last season with DLSU. Ngayon, Mike Phillips is last season na rin niya sa DLSU. So, of course, a lot of players who are in their last seasons playing UAAP basketball, they want to leave with the trophy in hand. So it's going to be a battle sa Smart Araneta Coliseum. 3:30 ang laro dyan. And wag na lang umiyak pag kasi half of the Coliseum will have to go home crying and the other half will be celebrating. Sino ang magbo-bonfire? Yan ang tanong. Sino ang magbo-bonfire? Kaya wag po kayo ma-stress. Pabigyan nyo na. Outlet lang naman ng mga tao yan mamaya konting traffic lang sa Cubao as if hindi naman tayo sanay sa traffic sa Cubao
Oo nga. Pero ngayon daw medyo ngayong oras na to medyo mas okay yun.
Sabi ni Arles.
Siguro kasi yung ibang classes naka-Christmas break na.
Plus, yung mga 13-month pay ng iba, binigay nung last week ng November to first week of December, ubus na pera nila. So, ayaw na nila pumunta ng mall. Di ba? So, tipid-tipid na sila kasi bibili pa pang Noche Buena
Yes.
At least basta may 500 kayo sa pocket nyo, may Noche Buena kaya. Sarcastic yun.
Siyempre, kukontrahin
600 na lang. 600 pesos, may Noche Buena na. Di ba? Diba? 10 pancit canton, 10 pirasong pandesal, tsaka hot chocolate.
Sige, yan kainin.
And with that, I'd like to leave everyone with a quote. Peace on earth begins with kindness at home. Ganun kasimple lang po yan. And that wraps up today's episode of News and Views.
Join us again tomorrow. I'm Angelo Castro.
And I'm Angelo Castro III, kapatid. We are One News.
All sides, all the time.